This is the Lockpicker 1969, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to the next episode of Challenge Lock Workshop. Today's interview is with challenge lock maker BanditoBrandino. Say hi.
Hello.
So, you made a video so in preparing for this interview, you made an actual video that goes through your 10 challenge locks. And I just like to play that video first, and then we'll get into talking about each one of those locks. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, here we go.
Table of contents. My first challenge lock was an American 1100 that I named Cash. It traveled the United States before Knox Lock sent it on a tour of Europe. He has plans of it returning to the United States in December of this year, 2023. As for the pins, I didn't go far out with them. I figured I could get a little crazier on later projects, but I did add another pin, so this would be a 6-pinner in honor of the late great Johnny Cash. Challenge lock number 2 was Home Sweet Home. Originally, this was the lock to my own front door. After replacing it, I thought I'd turn this into a challenge lock. Along with the challenge lock came a logbook. On the cover of the logbook was the infamous Los Feliz murder mansion. On the inside was a bit of a story about it. This is one of my favorite challenge locks because it wasn't made to be particularly difficult. It had deep counter rotation, deep false sets, and it was a fun lock to pick. Unfortunately, it's gone missing. Next was National Lampoon's Vacation, made out of a die-cast quick set. I added a Wally World keychain and a logbook with the cover of the movie on it. It was my first experimentation with adding decals to the face of the lock. On the inside was the first time that I tried piston pins. They were in chambers 1 and 2. The rest of the pins were nothing to bat your eye at. They also had deep grooves, and I was quite proud of them. The plug itself had some manufacturing holes drilled into it, which I filled with JB weld and sanded smooth so that wouldn't catch the T-pins. Number 4 was named after an actual orca living off the Oregon coast in a transient pod. His name is Chainsaw because he's a bull orca that has a chunk out of his dorsal fin. To this lock I added a keychain and made a custom box. There's a decal of an actual photo of Chainsaw on the face of the lock. The logbook is quite gruesome. The cover, you can see, has a ferocious killer whale, but on the inside tells the story of the actual Chainsaw the transient whale. And I've splattered red food coloring over the first page to make it a little bit more morbid. I added grub screws to the top, and I don't know if I'd repeat that with this particular type of lock because they couldn't be threaded in too far without the springs bottoming out during picking. But it worked well enough, and on the back I also grinded the lever to a point to look like a orca's dorsal fin and painted it black. Painted the screw heads white to mimic the eyelets of the orca whale. I also grinded the key down so that it could accommodate a 7th pin. So on the inside there are 7 sets of pins, one being a pin-in pin, T-pin or 2, and some deep spooling. Honeybee is another American 1100, one that I made specifically as a gift for Cajun Lockpick because he's helped me out along my journey through the belt system. And although I did make custom pins, I don't have any photos of them. Number 6, Marcus came to me with Marcus written into this Master Series 5835? 6835, not sure. It came to me in a package of other people's challenge locks. I picked it, gutted it to find that the insides were factory. So I altered the pins and sent it on its way. I also don't have photos of the pins that I customized on this one. Elvira was number 7, made around Halloween time. 6-pin Schlag with a custom keychain, custom bag that it fit into with a patch that I sewed on. I engraved the name Elvira into the top and into the face of the lock, along with a blood drop under the plug, and painted the cover. It also came with a logbook. It was first sent to Landspy Key because at the time he seemed to be the expert in undercut milling. So this was my first experimentation in making undercuts into the plug. Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm is named and themed after an unsolved murder that happened in the 1940s in Worcestershire, England. The lock itself is a 6-pin Sergeant Mortis sent to me by Picksmith with the intention that I might make it into a challenge lock. It's one of my proudest works. The engraving on the face is supposed to be a witch elm, and you can see a skull, which plays into the actual story of the mystery. The bow of the key was polished so that I could engrave the name of the lock into the bow with a reflective background. A keychain was added that also ties into the story, along with a logbook with a photo on the cover of the famous Hagley obelisk, but from time to time still, graffiti can be found asking, who put Bella in the witch elm? This CL hasn't been picked on camera, and I don't have photos of the pins inside. I know I customized them greatly, and I remember it being a challenging lock to pick. If anybody has a video, please tag me. I'd love to see it. Number 9, Green Boots. It's a Schlag Everest challenge lock. It was named after the unidentified climber in neon boots whose body was and might still be used as a landmark for climbers on their way to the peak. The bag this lock comes in was sewn by my sister from Tibetan prayer flags. These flags litter the peak of Mount Everest, left there by brave Sherpas. This lock also comes with a custom embroidered keychain and a logbook with the story of Green Boots inside. The pins of this lock include spools, T-pins, tree pins, deep serrations, undercuts, and threading in the plug. But for the first time in this lock, I tried a triangular pin. I got this idea from an Australian challenge lock that I had picked around about right before I made this one. My 10th and almost complete challenge lock is named Mono, after the word Hawaiian for shark. It's got the custom keychain, and what makes this one unique is I silver soldered and filed a chunk of brass onto the Bible of the challenge lock, the KIK, K-I-K, to look like a shark's dorsal fin. It comes with a custom tin box with a shark patch that's glued on the inside, and I potentially might make a few more similar locks and have this sort of be a group of shark locks, but that's yet to be determined. Inside, I'm further experimenting with gin type pins that get locked into the undercuts in the plug. Around this time, I was dealing with a lot of gins in the undercuts and the ASA 6 and 700s, and that was the inspiration. And that concludes all the challenge locks I've made thus far. If you come across any of these challenge locks, I'd appreciate if you'd record it, take a photo, and let me know. Thanks for watching.
All right, so the first challenge lock on your list is Cash. Can want to talk about that a bit?
Sure. I that was for my blue belt, and that was actually the back then the American 1100 was ranked blue belt. And after I picked it, I decided to convert that into my challenge lock. And I got the idea from Cajun Lockpick, who had um, his first, I believe it was his first challenge lock from a green American 1100. So I decided to do the same. But I had a black one, and when it came to altering it, I thought, man, I could really engrave on this black surface. It'd be a perfect palette. And I saw the black, and I like Johnny Cash. I'm not a huge fan. Um, I thought it just Men in Black, it stood out. So I'm like, I've got to engrave a photo of Johnny Cash on the cover. And
Okay.
I had no idea how popular uh, that lock would be. There's a lot of Johnny Cash fans
Okay.
internationally. I
All
come to
right.
find out.
Okay. All right. So your second challenge lock, though, Home Sweet Home, you said that's kind of been lost. You don't know where it is anymore?
Well, I do. I mean, I believe I do. I sent it to somebody else who made their first challenge lock, and he picked it on video, and he's a really cool guy. And he was looking for the next home for it. And from what I understand, I could be wrong, but I believe it was an alias for somebody who's been banned from the community,
Ah,
maybe.
okay.
And so I'm guessing that challenge lock is another victim. But if it shows up again, that would be awesome. It
Yeah.
was a fun and not too challenging lock to pick. It had good deep false sets, and it gave fun feedback.
Okay. Now, National Lampoon's Vacation, that looked like an awesome lock. The theme and
It was,
everything, all
yeah,
the work that went into that was incredible.
yeah. That was a quick set, and I believe it's die cast. I don't think I'd make one out of die cast again. I wasn't happy with the feedback on that, but it was had fun learning how to apply. Uh, I think they're called water or wet decals.
Hmm.
It took a lot of work, a lot of trial and error, a lot of messing it up, then having to sand the face back down to start over again. I learned a lot when it comes to adding decals, and then they scratch off easily. So I tried experimented a bit with adding some sort of protective cover, uh, and I was somewhat successful with that. I'm sure it's scratched now, and that's okay. But yeah, it was a fun lock to make. And as my also Gabriel was big on piston locks. He still is, or piston pins. I'm sorry. And that was my first attempt at piston pins. I believe it was chamber 1 and 2. A couple piston pins. They
Ah,
weren't too
okay.
pretty, but yeah, I feel like the die. I think Picksmith told me later with the quick set, they don't tend to make great challenge locks. And I think I picked it open. I picked all my challenge locks open, but that one was pretty difficult just because the feedback felt a little dull. And I think that's one of the, aside from Cash, it's one of the more filmed challenge locks that I've seen. A few people have gotten it open, so
Yeah.
it's great to see.
Very cool. So, out of all 10 of these different amazing themed locks you've put together, which one would you say was the most difficult for you to make?
Oh, difficult to make. Huh. Um, I'd say Cash, I'd have to say, only because there was such a learning curve.
Okay.
The rest, yeah, I mean, hmm, I was still learning my Dremel tool at that point, and there was just a lot to learn, and it has smaller pins, so it was a lot more difficult. I felt like to deal with those very small pins. Other ones, I don't know if I would say they were difficult to make. They were fun and almost therapeutic to make. Maybe the piston pins were pretty difficult in National Lampoon Vacation, and I have a lot of room to improve on piston pin making.
Well, you cranked out quite a few locks in a very between Chainsaw the Transient and Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm, between those, that's what, 5 locks from mid-August through mid-September. So like a month, you cranked out 5 challenge locks. That's wow. you
Yeah,
you
I'd
were
like to
you were
get back to
busy.
him.
You were busy.
Well, I hate to keep bringing up his name. I mean, I don't hate to, but Cajun, I think at that point I was talking with him, and I think he had said he's put out something like 50. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking, man, I better pick up my game. But to be honest, it was a lot of fun. It's fun to. I feel for myself when I figure out a theme, like I get excited, and I'm excited for the response when I get to share that with the community.
Mhm. All
So they
right.
were a lot of fun.
So you may have already said this, but which challenge lock of the 10 do you feel was the most difficult for the community to open, or has been the most difficult for the community to open?
Uh, hmm. I would personally I'd say the National Lampoon Vacation, but I've seen a lot of people get that open. Who put Bella in the Witch Elm? I think might be a little bit more on the difficult side, but I tend to prefer to make locks that I don't want to defeat the picker. I like to challenge them just enough
So they have
that I
fun.
want them to walk away and it's a fun. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a fun lock to pick,
Yeah.
and so I think that's what I tend to aim at. I don't. I can appreciate people who do try to make locks that nobody can pick, and I get that. But I think my niche is just a fun lock. It gives you feedback.
Okay. So I know I do what I call pin therapy. I just sit there and make pins. What would you say your favorite pin is to make?
I think for the longest time I liked a deep spool because I think that does give the funnest feedback. To change it up, after talking with Lance Spikey, I got into making. I think they would be considered gins with like an undercut in the plug milling, which gives a deeper false set. And I don't feel like I've fully experimented the possibilities there, and that's been a lot of fun. Deep false sets are, I think, a blast.
Mm-hmm. And your favorite mod to do?
What you mean, like to the chambers?
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, I'd say the undercut. I started off betting, and I got a challenge lock. I think it's what's the name of it? I forget, but it's they put like screws as pins, and then every chamber is threaded, and it's such a difficult lock. I'm still holding on to it because I still have hopes that I'm going to get it open, then I'll pass it on to the next victim. But like I think like I don't think I want to pass that on. I don't want to make a challenge lock that's like that. I'd rather I don't want something that kind of locks up and it's quiet. Uh, so I like those false sets.
Okay. So you've you you've had a lot of creative ideas for all these different challenge locks. What inspires some of these themes you come up with?
Probably ADHD. I go down all these rabbit holes. I've gotten deep into researching orcas in the wild and the different types of orcas, transients, and now I forget that was a rabbit hole I went down a while back. But there's anyways, there's all different kinds of these orca pods, and I think they're fascinating. That was the inspiration for Chainsaw, and uh, Elvira was around Halloween time, and as I was making that lock, I thought it'd be a fun Halloween themed lock, and then I'd kind of go into a deep dive of Elvira, and it's just fun to share. I figure you're picking a lock, but there's a little bit more of a story, and some people might not
Yeah.
attach to that. Some people might just want to pick that lock, but other people might, if they're like me, there's other ways that lock can interact with the picker and just make it a lot more fun. I feel. I mean, I have a lot of fun with the
So,
themes. Probably more fun with the themes maybe than even the pin making.
okay, so when you sit down to start doing a challenge lock, what do you focus on first? You've got a theme, so what do you start focusing on making of the challenge lock first?
I'll probably start with the key and decide, do I want a gatekeeper up front? Is that too obvious? Do I want the gatekeeper, say it's like a 5 pin? Do I want it in 3 or 4s to make that higher last pin more difficult to reach? How difficult do I want it to reach? I'll generally start with the key. After I've got the key, I'll pull the plug out and I'll put the pins in, and then I'll make marks on the pins to see, okay, this is the area that'll interact with the shear line. Because early on, I believe I just made the pins, probably in Cache, maybe even in Home Sweet Home. And, I made the pins on the Dremel to look like pins that I've seen in other challenge locks. And those aspects those features didn't even interact with the shear line. So that's something so it goes key and then start to mark where I'm working
Okay.
on the pin.
All right. So, what are your go-to tools when you're making challenge locks?
I'm sure a Dremel. I'm sure that's everybody's answer. I've got a round Swiss file, which is nice. I've got a I think it's called a jeweler's saw.
Yep.
That when I use the Dremel as a router, or is that what it's called? A router.
What is the name? What is it? I'm
lathe.
looking for lathe. Yes, lathe.
Yeah. So I use that as a lathe, and then I'll use I think it's called a jeweler's saw, and the various files to make that. And then I've got a few tips for the Dremel to work on to make the undercuts if I'm going to do that on the plug. Yep. So
okay. So
I think a fairly basic setup.
Out of all the tools you have, which one would you say is something every challenge lock maker should have?
The Dremel.
Anything other than a Dremel? That's a pretty standard one, I think.
Okay. Too obvious. I really love that Swiss round file. It makes smooth cuts. I mean, you probably want something to make sharper cuts, so.
Well, any particular?
Yes, I'd have to go with the jeweler's saw, I guess.
Any particular brand of files you're using?
I don't. Someone recommended something a long while back, and I remember finding it on Amazon. It wasn't anything too pricey. I don't know the name brands. I should get into that. I could probably pick my game up. I did.
The Valorby files are phenomenal. I can't say enough about them.
Look into those, yeah.
Yep, they're a little bit more expensive, but very high quality. Can't say enough good things about those. All right, so before we wrap up, are there any other challenge lock makers that you take inspiration from or admire what they put out there, what they do?
Yeah, Lance by Key. He's made some real fun ones. He's been a bit quiet recently, but he's made the most difficult challenge lock I've ever picked. And he makes various levels of difficulty, and there's various levels of difficulty in his challenge locks. Asian lock, his locks are fun to pick. And who's the guy from Europe that tends to get it? I don't know why his name's escaping me, but made Ballroom.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know offhand.
He made Ballroom. His are, and Jay Gabriel, of course.
Oh yeah,
a bit evil.
Jay Gabriel's a mad scientist when it comes to challenge locks. So
I picked one of his, and I think it was one of his earlier ones. I'd be a bit nervous to receive one of his more recent ones.
Yeah, be afraid. Be very afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, him and Pick Smith makes great challenge locks.
Yeah, they do.
So many out there. Yeah.
So, is there anything you'd like to say to our budding challenge lock makers that might be listening to this right now?
Um, I I I have a lot of fun with the themes. I have a lot of fun with the blank. I've received challenge locks that don't have a name. They're fun, but I think the more character you add to it,
Yeah.
that's something that really interests me, makes it a lot more fun,
Yeah.
and I feel like it makes it a lot more shareable. Um, Personally, I think it interests others when you post in LPU or whether it's on Reddit or if you make a YouTube video. I feel like it's more viewable to see someone pick a themed challenge lock.
Well, I'll say it again. I am offering that service to challenge lock makers out there when they come up with a lock that they would like to kind of socialize, get some exposure for, share and create some excitement for a lock that's about to get out into the wild. I'm more than happy to do that type of interview with challenge lock makers and help them share their new creations and create a buzz. So, alrighty. I want to thank you for doing this interview, and the video that you did was just awesome. I enjoyed watching it from beginning to end, so that was very cool. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I made it in preparation for this interview, so
Okay, it's great.
motivated me.
That was awesome. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. If you are a subscriber, thank you. If you are not yet a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications and all, and hit like on the video. And thanks for listening.